he heard you really didn't want to compete in SUG again to take the risk of losing to him in a rule set that really isn't something you do that much anymore. And he hasn't gone to Who's Number One, which you're the main guy in, because they offered him less than Submission Underground. Is there any truth to what he heard? And do you think a Gordon Ryan, Mason Fowler super fight happens sometime in the next year?
Okay, so a couple different answers to a few different questions here.
Okay.
First, I'm more than happy to compete in SUG. Everyone forgets, but SUG is EBI rules.
Yeah.
I'm a 4-time EBI champion.
Yeah.
I'm undefeated at EBI. I'm 16-0 with a 100% submission rate between regulation and overtime. So you really can't get better than that.
No.
So as far as rule set goes, EBI is my preferred rule set. EBI are no time limit, but nobody will compete under those because they know they can't beat me in those rule sets. So that's my preferred rule set. The reason why I haven't competed at SUG was because SUG was willing to pay me a lot less money than anybody else. Like it was like half of what anybody else would pay me to show up.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense to do super fights for SUG when I know what the other guys are making, and I'm not really making that much more than the guys who nobody really knows. So for me to compete for SUG financially didn't really make sense. Kyle Terra is Mason Fowler's coach. And the team apparently approached Flow Grappling for Who's Number One. And they say, we want Mason to compete against Gordon. And they're like, okay. And they said, we only have one condition. Now, I don't know. I've heard this from multiple people, so I know that the team did approach Flow about this. Whether or not Mason knows that they approached Flo about this, I don't know. But I don't know anything behind the scenes. But I know for a fact that this conversation was had with Flo. He said, we want him to compete against Gordon, but on one condition. And they're like, okay, what is it? All of my matches are 30 minutes long, or ADCC rules. They said, we want him to compete against Gordon, but it has to be 10 minutes. And if there's no submission, it has to go to a draw. And they're like, well, that means that Mason's just going to run away the whole time and try to not get submitted. Like nobody wants to see that. Like, could you imagine, like, it has to be 10 minutes and if there's no submission, it goes to a draw. Like that just entices the guy to not do anything and just try to not get submitted. So it goes to a draw. It doesn't make any sense from any standpoint ever. Like no fan wants to see that. Flo doesn't want to see that.
It's disappointing to a fan.
I'm a grappling fan and I wouldn't want to see a guy try to stall me out for 10 minutes. So that's, I think, a big reason. I mean, people can say what they want. They can say they want to compete against me, but when the contracts actually come and the dates actually are announced, there's not many people who actually want to show up and compete. So I think that was just a weird request, just for, that in and of itself. I just want to stall you to a draw. I think it's kind of odd. Number one. Number two, Mason and his team really have no leverage of any kind in negotiating with me. Like when I was coming up and I didn't have any accomplishments or anything, I wanted to fight the best guys. And I just, whatever they would suggest, I would compete. If they wanted to compete IBJJF rules, I would do it. Like I entered 2018 Nogi Pans and Nogi Worlds just because I wanted to win under an IBJJF rule set. But now everyone's coming up to me and they're like trying to negotiate and like demand things. It's like you're getting people who compete against me get twice what they would normally get to fight anybody else. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they immediately get tons of followers because I post about them, posted with them, Flo posts about them in the main event. So the brand instantly goes up. And if they lose, who cares? Like everyone's supposed to lose to me. So it doesn't, it's kind of, I'm kind of in a strange situation here where, guys they just hate me so much. They just refuse to lose to me. So they just want to compete. So everyone says they want to compete when the contracts actually come, it's kind of hard to get guys to agree and show up.